Did you have a narcissistic mother? If so, I understand. And if you did have a narcissistic mother, chances are you have a very harsh inner critic. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. So recently I was just thinking about, um, mind you, I have had therapy and I've dealt with a lot of things from my childhood, but I still battle a lot with my inner critic, and it's very harsh and it's very frustrating. And I know that I would not speak to other people like my inner critic speaks to me. And so I feel like it's really important to remind yourself that if you grew up with an abusive, narcissistic mother, as I did, that this voice that is so mean, that tears you down, that tells you can't do something before you even try, um, criticizes your body, shames you, is your mother, and not just part of who you are. I mean, it is part of who you are, unfortunately, but it's really not the essence of who you are. And so it's really important when we are going through these spirals of and challenges that happen with having a harsh inner critic that we remind ourselves to talk back to that critic if you have to, or challenge that critic if you have to, um, and to really try to separate that harsh inner critic from who you are and really think about, how do I want to talk to myself? Um, and this could be a really challenging thing because you go through the abuse in childhood, you go into adulthood, or I left home at 16, and then instead of the mother still being there to tear you down, being harsh and terrible to you, you kind of continue to carry the torch because it is a default setting now, into your brain. So I've noticed that anytime I've wanted to try maybe a new hobby or, go for a promotion or whatever the case is, the critic comes in so quickly to be like, you can't do that. You're not qualified. If you're not naturally good at that, then you probably shouldn't even try. And so you kind of almost sabotage yourself before you even give yourself a chance to try. So one of the one of the biggest things, or broken record on repeat, that I have dealt with over many of years is shame. And I remember when I had like my first therapist and we were working on something, she gave me some sort of type of homework to do. And it was like writing down, what voices, are speaking to you, what's going on basically. And one of the first things I wrote down is that I feel a lot of shame. I'm ashamed. And I remember when I took that homework back, to the therapist, and she said, well, you know, whose voice is that? Who said that to you? And I had to really think and remember that it was my mother for years would just constantly tell me, you should be ashamed of yourself. She would write 10-page letters to me telling me, I was terrible to her, she was the victim, not me. She was the victim. And I treated her like dirt and you should be ashamed of yourselves. I would get, 10-minute voicemails um, saying the same thing. And so shame has been a big thing that I've struggled with even to this day, because she had planted that seed and said it over and over and over and over. And I had heard it so many years. And as the saying goes, you hear it enough, you're going to believe it. And so that is something that I've really have to, even today, after all the books and therapy and this, like, it is a constant thing that I continually am trying to rewire my thought patterns and rewire my brain to really challenge when, that shame comes up, or, whatever the case is. Um, Same thing with body image. Body image was a big thing, really in my whole family, but particularly with my mother. She was very into like how she looked, and Um, there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself and whatnot. There's a difference between that and being very critical of your body, and maybe somebody was critical to her. I don't know. So I've never really felt, good or comfortable in my body, and I've been really thin, and I've been not so thin, and being thin was, kind of very important to her. And so, oddly enough, when I got on medication for having panic attacks because of the abuse I suffered from my mother, um, I inevitably put on weight, and I hadn't seen her in a long time. And I had seen her, and while she didn't say it to my face, hours later, she called and left me a voicemail saying, you really better get your weight under control. You're going to end up on that show, The Biggest Loser. Um, so and then even from other family members too, if I was on the thin side, I was, oh my gosh, you're so thin, don't you eat? And then you gain weight and everybody has something to say about it, so you really just can't please anyone when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I think a lot about how this inner critic has held me back in a lot of ways. um, I really am the type of person that likes to try new things or experience new things or whatever the case. And the mental fight that has to take place before I will even try, um, can be exhausting. Even just starting this channel, I was just like, oh, yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be something different to do. I have a lot to say, I think. And then, all these thoughts come in of like, why bother? Nobody's going to listen to what you have to say. Nobody cares what you have to say. Or, you need to lose some weight before you do that, whatever the case. So the voices are very easy to spot, but they're not so easy to change. And so some of the things that have helped me a little bit is kind of journaling out some of these voices, especially the ones that I for sure could tell are like from her over the years, and writing those down, challenging them, kind of asking, is that true? Is that accurate? Do I really not get anything right? Do I really need to feel super ashamed about this? That's one thing I think that has been helpful. Um, if you can in the moment, challenge that. If you walk by a mirror and you're like, ugh, you know, maybe do a reframe and say, you know what? No, I don't have a perfect body, but this body has carried me, through so much, and I honor and I love her. Um, Meditation has actually helped me. Now, I don't do any sort of silent meditations, but I will do guided ones from YouTube. And that really helps quiet down the mind because there's another voice to kind of listen to. And when I feel hijacked by the inner critic, um, sitting in nature will sometimes help. Or if I don't have the opportunity to do that, I'll put in my earbuds, I'll find a short guided meditation. One of my favorites actually is the mindful movement. They're on YouTube, and just really love their meditations. There's so many you can choose. I haven't even touched the surface. So meditation is helpful to kind of calm that down. And when I can calm it down, if it's been hijacked and I'm just in a big shame spiral or whatever the case, then I feel like I can come back to it, kind of refocus, and really kind of just get to grips with like, okay, this is not accurate. This is her voice, not mine. And I don't have to listen to this. I don't have to carry the torch. I don't have to. It's almost like a self abuse after you've maybe gotten away from your mother and been away from her for a while. If you're not careful or if you're not aware, you might just keep carrying that torch. And that really is self abuse if you're constantly nitpicking at yourself, critiquing your body, critiquing, something you do wrong. That's very simple. That it's just a human mistake. About 6 months ago, I made a mistake at work. It was not huge, was not fatal, was not major. And I went into a shame spiral for like 2 days over it. Like, how could you be so stupid? How could you make that mistake? You know better, how could you do that? And I was like, oh my gosh, this reaction does not match what happened. I didn't get fired. I didn't get somebody else fired. I didn't lose a client or anything major, but I went through a huge spiral just for making a very simple human mistake. So if you find yourself doing that, uh, I would suggest trying to have big doses. And I mean, I feel like we need double the doses if you are like me and had a narcissistic mother. Big doses of compassion towards yourself, empathy towards yourself. If somebody in your life made a mistake, or you have children, they make a mistake, you would not, if you're a good parent or you're a good friend or whatever the case, you would not sit there and just shame them. You don't deserve that. So lots of self-compassion, and really think about too, for me, growing up in a very chaotic environment, having a narcissistic mother, but it was also chaotic from addiction, and I think she had some other mental health issues too, but everything was so chaotic. So I don't know if you relate to this, but I put so much pressure on myself, or like I feel like I'm always in a hurry, like you gotta hurry up and do it, you gotta hurry up and do it, and put this pressure on yourself where you can't really think clearly, you can't really think logically. So it's like that hijack happens where you just kind of snowball into this, oh, I gotta fix this, oh, I gotta do this, oh, I gotta do this, gotta be perfect, gotta do this. And we need to slow our roll. We don't have somebody breathing down our neck. We're not gonna get in trouble. We need to slow our roll, relax, and try to come back to it as whatever we're doing without shaming ourselves, or without critiquing ourselves, or without saying, whatever, fill in the blank that maybe your mother always said to you. So it's just a topic I've really been thinking about lately, and how I still, even in midlife, at this age in my 40s, still dealing with that. And I hate that that she even still has any sort of, power or say up there. But if you do have, uh, trauma from a narcissistic mother, then it is something that might be with you for a while. But I do feel it's something that we can learn to just continually turn down the noise a little bit, as time goes on, and really replace these just kind of nasty, um, remarks and default settings in our brain, and just turn it down a bit to where you can really just have a little bit more self acceptance, a little bit more self compassion, a little bit more grace and patience for ourselves. Um, Being around a narcissist, it's the last thing you ever get. There is no empathy, there is no grace, there is none of that, right? And so we have to learn to incorporate that, and really just give ourselves a break. So if you have dealt with this type of thing that I'm talking about, and I have barely scratched the surface on this just, I guess, a little bit of a overview. But if you have a narcissistic mother, or you have this harsh inner critic, please share your story if you feel comfortable in the comments, and what's helped you, what you might struggle with. And I love seeing in the comments on YouTube, because people kind of help each other and kind of listen to each other and relate to each other. So thanks for coming along today. Look forward to talking to you next time. Take care of yourself.